Hey everybody, welcome back for another video. We're going to talk about how to improve club face control in your golf swing. So I'm going to use Matt here as an example because I think, in my opinion, this is the most efficient or the most effective way in helping one improve their club face control if they don't deliver the club face into the ball in a predictable manner that they want. So with Matt, this is the old swing where we kind of started with, which represents a lot of amateur golfers in the sense that when he makes his backswing, he hinges too much. So you can see the club is way past parallel, so he's hinging too much, and then he doesn't have much depth of the hands where the hands are on top of the shoulders. Okay, so in that sense, he's very typical amateur golfer. So usually, if you hinge so much or you hinge too much, the club gets past parallel. Okay, we don't want to see that. I'm only going to look at this from the down the line view for this video, so that we can kind of simplify things for you guys on what to look for when you guys are videoing yourself when you practice on your own. So typically, when you hinge too much in the backswing, you tend to have too steep of a downswing coming down. So because you have so much wrist angles, that leads to you being very steep in the downswing, which typically causes the lead wrist to be slightly cupped, which we don't want. So the more cupped your lead wrist is, the more open faced you might probably be. And then couple that with you being so steep in the downswing, you're then forced to try to release your wrists all at once, very flippy through it. You can see Matt's not very rotated here. His trail arm is very straight. Again, a lot of things that you see amateur golfers tend to do. Most good ball strikers, their trail arm is going to be slightly bent at impact, whereas Matt here exhibits a lot of traits of an amateur golfer where his trail arm is very straight, because he has to strain everything to try to release all his angles, and as a result, with not being so rotated with the body, he's forced to flip through it, which is why his dispersion wasn't very good when we first started. So very atypical amateur golfer swing where, again, hinges too much, which causes a lot of issues in the downswing, which causes not very good club face control into the downswing. So with Matt, one of the biggest things we've always talked about was not feeling no hinge. And for Matt feeling no hinge, he still hinges. It's just a better amount. So with him, you can see, and what I really like seeing for most golfers, for most amateur golfers, is being able to see shaft at the top of the backswing. So with Matt, we're exaggerating right now. This is a lot of shaft. Typically, we don't need to see the entire club like that. Typically, half of that is already a very good amount of shaft to see. But with that, we're kind of bringing this back for him. We're exaggerating really, really hard here, so we see a lot of shaft. Okay, but this is a good place to start. If you truly are someone who's struggling to find the fairway, who's finding the planet, going this route feeling zero hinge is a great way to go. Also, as a result of feeling less hinge, the club shallows out way early. So you see the club comes in shallower, and the club and his trail forearm matches up, whereas before the club is way steeper than the trail forearm. So I really like seeing things travel down the trail forearm during the downswing. It's not a be all end all, but I do like seeing that as a preference for most amateur golfers. And as a result of it being shallower, you can see Matt is rotating through the ball a lot better now. A little bit of a weird angle here, but he's rotating through the ball better, which we like. So that's why through more rotation of the body, we're able to deliver the club face into the ball in a more predictable fashion. As well, the less hinge you have, you can see how flat his lead wrist is, okay? We want that lead wrist to be flat at impact, and for most players, we want that lead wrist to be flat in the downswing. So by not hinging, we're able to set that up already in the backswing so that there's not much manipulation needed in the downswing. All he has to do is turn to the backswing with that no hinge feel. He's got a nice wrist structure where his lead wrist is flat, his trail wrist is bent, and from there, he just maintains it and he turns through the ball really, really nicely, which is what I really, really like to see. So if you're someone who struggles with club face delivery, you're having low point control issues as well, feeling no hinge is a great way to go because you kind of lock out your width. It's a very constant radius swing where there's not much narrowing of the backswing in the down in the sorry not much narrowing of the golf swing in the backswing, which is why you're not forced to unnarrow it so much in the downswing, which again leads to more consistency. And then if I show you guys the wood video, you can also see same thing, feeling no hinge, still hits it really good. So feeling no hinge, lots of club at the top, lead wrist flat, right wrist bent, which is again lovely wrist structure to see for most amateur golfers. Most amateur golfers can very benefit from having that kind of wrist structure at the top of the backswing. Okay, so one more time for you guys. Too much hinge on the top, making it very steep in the downswing, making his club face delivery very suspect, making the club face delivery for a lot of amateur golfers suspect, compared to video on the right, which is what's always kind of worked well for Matt, is feeling no hinge, which is being able to see a lot more shaft at the top of the backswing. So that's a good reference for you guys to look at. If you don't see shaft at the top of the backswing pointing back of you, you're probably hinging too much. If you see shaft starting to point downwards, which means you're past parallel, you're definitely too hinged in most cases. So those would be your references. We want to see shaft at the top of the backswing. We want to see lead wrist flat, trail wrist bent as a result. If you don't hinge so much, you're probably going to get that. So hope this helps. As you guys are practicing and working on your game during this time, really focus on feeling no hinge if you're someone who struggles with hitting it straight or who struggles with delivering the club face in a predictable fashion. So hope this helps. I'm going to play this for you one more time. Video on the left is the typical amateur golfer in the sense that he's narrow, he's hinging too much, not knowing where the club face is pointing at impact. And then video on the right is what I would recommend you do if you're that amateur golfers who struggle with not finding the club face. So feeling no hinge, lots of width, lots of rotation as a result, club face is super stable. So hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. Any questions, leave it in the comments below as usual. I'll get to them as fast as I can. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe, and I'll answer your questions as fast as I can. Thanks, guys.